program that we're going to be giving tonight is we are hoping to have a plant auction in place. Lychee and longan are two subtropical fruit trees, very popular in many cultures that are propagated primarily by air layering. Unfortunately for us here in California, they are very hard to come by and often quite few and far between getting good named varieties that we can grow in our gardens. They grow here very well, but just getting trees of named qualities is often quite difficult to find. And so this evening, Jim Nigel has brought in some air-layered trees for us from Dave Archer at Bonita Creek Nursery, and perhaps some others that we will be auctioning off to the membership if they are interested. That will occur right after the program tonight. We'll have a short break for refreshments, and then the auction will take place prior to our plant raffle, which we have over here on your left, my right. For those of you who are new to our meetings, we have an opportunity table set up in the front of the room. The plant material and other items on that table were donated by members, and there's some great stuff there. And you can purchase opportunity raffle tickets for $1 each, or $65? $65. And if you are interested in participating in the opportunity drawing, see Gustavo right over here, and he'd be glad to get you some tickets. And for $1, you can bring home some great plants or supplies. Wonderful papaya over there. We have some air layering supplies, some bananas, and all kinds of fun things. So that will come after the refreshment period, and we'll have our drawing towards the end of the evening. We like to welcome new visitors and guests to the meeting, and for some of our older members or the folks who have been here before, you'll notice a new system that's been implemented. Karen Lacombe back here in the back table has proposed we make our guests and new visitors a little more visible to us by giving them a little bit different name badge. You'll see the red name badges with the orange on them, and these are folks who are new to the meeting tonight. I'm going to ask you if you'd like to just stand up and introduce yourselves here in a moment, but I'd really like to ask all of our members to take them under your wing, introduce yourselves, get to know them a little bit, tell them a little bit about what we do here, and thank them for coming to our meeting here. We really do appreciate you coming and joining us, and we definitely want to take the time to make you feel welcome. So if anybody here is new, would you like to introduce yourselves to the group? Anyone would like to stand up and tell us where you live or what you're interested in growing?
Hello there. My name is Robert, and I belong to the San Diego Orchid Society, but I find it very difficult to eat them. And I just came to see what this is all about. I've heard about you, and I'd come down and check it out.
Thank you. Wonderful. Welcome.
My name is Roger Pollard, and I live in Spring Valley, and I have lots of unusual fruit, and I had no idea that they're strange and stuff when I have. But the things I have is pomegranates, yellow figs. I've been having a problem with my passion fruit. They're blooming, but there's not a lot of fruit. I found out from the bottom of the pear that I need a hand pollen. I had no idea they could be hand pollinated.
So if any of our members would like to help Roger out with hand pollinating his passion fruit and tell him how to do that, I'm sure he'd love to learn. Anyone else?
I'm Kath Melvin. We were former members of the North County Club. We just moved back from 5 years in Texas. And we live in Northeast Escondido, Alberta Center. The only fruit trees we have at the moment in the ground are 3 pomegranates that survived the 2002 wildfire. We lost our home. And were grown originally from trees from
Really interested in fruit trees. I want to have an enormous orchard of many of the more unusual ones, and I'm on my way there. I have some big tree and a kumquat, a loquat, a few other citrus, but I'm wanting more of the other ones. I'm hoping this one will be acquired for the other ones I would like.
Great, welcome. I hope we can give you some inspiration here. And anyone else like to introduce themselves this evening?
My name's P. Ellis Grant, and I was the former chair of the Inland Empire for 2007 and 2008. Maybe I met you at Southwestern College, little thing a couple years ago. And you may know people like Mitch Harakawa, and some of those people like Roger, and I think he lives out in Valley Center. He's the Juju Bee and the Kiwi guy, and Huntington Beach, and Roger Myers, Orange County. Anyway, I'm here just visiting. Check out the group. Maybe I might. I don't have a place yet to raise anything. I had an orchard in Riverside that was one of the oldest navel orange orchards next to where Sunkist first started, up in the Victoria area, off of Victoria Avenue, which is now, I think, a state park, and on Dufferin Avenue. And I sold that back in 2005 and retired.
One of these days, I'd like to retire. Before I'm 97. Anyone else?
Hello, I'm Paul Moshko. I know a few people in the group here. I run the urban farm over at City College.
Oh, well, maybe come in. Let the folks over there know that we're here and some of what we do. Anyone else like to introduce themselves? Well, please, members and everyone, take the time to welcome them and get to know them a little bit and let them know some of the things we do. We have some really fun things coming up. If you take a look at the screen, there are a few slides flashing up on the board there and a couple of announcements I need to make. One of them is regarding the San Diego County Fair, or the Del Mar Fair, as many of us know that. I'm sure all of you know, or most of you know, that we have a San Diego and North County chapter booth at the Del Mar Fair. And part of our publicity for the group is to let people know who we are by staffing the fair booth. And we do still have some dates where we have no one staffing the booth. And by volunteering, you do get free tickets to the fair. They're very easy to pick up. You simply go to the will call booth at the Del Mar Fair, and once you're in, you're welcome to stay and enjoy the fair for free. So if anyone finds that they have the dates that you see up on the board or on our website, if you go to the San Diego chapter website at crfgsandiego.org, you'll see the dates listed, and we can really use some volunteers to help us staff that booth. The shifts you see up on the board here in just a moment are morning shifts are 11 to 2 or 11 to 2 or 10 to 1, thank you. Got that wrong, didn't I? We need more afternoon shifts than morning shifts. There are a few days that no one is staffing at all for the entire day. But if some of you find you have some extra time and would be able to help us out, that would be great. It's a lot of fun. There's lots of interest at the booth, and it's really a good way to promote the chapter.
Tom, did you put up a phone number for them to call to sign up?
The sign-up phone number is on the website along with all the instructions. Contact Carol Graham. Carol Graham is in charge of the Del Mar Fair booth. and she has a rather well detailed set of instructions as to where to go, what to do at the chapter website, along with her phone number, so that you can call her and let her know that you would like staff that day. It's also in our newsletter, by the way, but it is on our website. Okay. Just a reminder for everyone, so that we don't disturb our neighbors, please, if you have cell phones, turn your cell phones off or turn them to vibrate. And if you do need to make a phone call or wish to have a conversation, if you could please step outside during the meeting so that you don't disturb our neighbors, we would appreciate it very much. A couple of other quick announcements. One is regarding our suggestion box at the back of the room right over here on the other side of the pillar, our suggestion tree. Some of you folks have been taking advantage of that. We really appreciate your input, good, bad, or indifferent. If you have any suggestions of things that we're doing well or not so well, or that you'd like to see, please put your suggestions in the box. It helps us to make the meeting more meaningful to you. Also, our committees that we formed, the committee persons are on the board on the wall over there. If you'd like to participate in the committees, we invite you to participate at any level. Coming up this Saturday, on the 26th at 5 p.m., we are having a joint committee meeting at the Water Conservation Garden at Cleomaca College. This will be an opportunity for us to reorganize, to talk about some joint projects, and any members are more than welcome to attend. We invite you to come and give your input, and even if you're only able to help participate in one event, we'd love you to help out whenever you can. So I just wanted to remind folks that we do have that committee meeting coming up. I see that we just got an exciting addition to the meeting. Steve Spangler from Exotica Nursery has come to join us tonight as a vendor consigner, and he has brought some really exciting things with that he is offering for sale. Thank you, Steve. He came a long ways, came way up from Vista, and he brought some air layers and some other really exciting plants that, rather than all of us having to go up there to him, he brought them down here to us. So it's a great opportunity to take advantage of that and reduce the amount of fuel and time we spend going up to get these unique plant materials. Please take time during the break to go and visit him and see what he has to offer, and see if there's anything there that you'd like to take home and plant in your yard. Give a home to one of these wonderful plants that he has brought with us tonight. There are a couple of committee members who had some short announcements they wanted to make, so I'm going to turn the podium over to them. Eric Collins and Dave Long, I know you both wanted to make a quick announcement. So Eric, you're over here first. You want to come up, and then we'll turn it over to Dave.
We're hosting a society day on Friday, the day after tomorrow, at the Del Mar Fair. So anybody can show up, that'd be great. We've got 4 speakers. Tom is going to be the first speaker at 12:30. He's going to be talking about timely tips for fruit trees. And Jim Knight is going to be our last speaker at 5 o'clock. He's going to be doing a session on propagating from seeds. It's over by O'Brien Hall. It's the Flower and Garden Show stage. And admission to the speaking event is free with admission to the fair. So again, it starts at 12:30, and we're going to wrap up about 6. So if any of you guys can make it, that'd be great. Hope to see you Friday. Thanks.
Well, good evening, everyone. First, while I'm talking, Jim Neitzel, if you could come up, please, for a second. Jim? He's on his way. The grafting knife sale that I talked about last week came out wonderfully. We had 8 people place orders, and the knives are not only beautifully made, they're very elegant. They're extremely well made. I bought one 3 years ago. And it cost me about $6 less than one of these are made. And they're thank you all who participated. I expect lots of new grafted trees from you. Jim, 3 of us went together, Cielo, myself, and Aaron St. John. As part of CRFG, we wanted to award you with one of these nice. He's the head of our grafting propagation committee. These are beautiful. This is made out of, I don't know if it's buffalo horn or something like that. High-hardened steel. Anyways.
Quite a bit costly than my old reliable.
I've got one of those. Look at that. Anyways, Jim, thank you very much. I appreciate everything you've done for us, and please give him a big hand. Lastly, for the Philanthropy Committee, we've been working very hard, and we now have 2 proposals that we're going to be giving to the Executive Committee. After that, they will be brought to the membership at our next meeting and discussed among all of us to vote on or not. This is going to be for the Paul Thompson's philanthropy gift. And we have a couple things which I think can be really useful, exciting, and can make a large impact. So I'm not going to go into it right now. We've got a nice presentation to do. But please come next meeting and plan on voting yea or nay or indifferently, whatever it may be. But please come. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kevin with the Refreshment Committee. I wanted to remind our members and guests who are going to show up next month for refreshment, members with last names that begin A through F. We'd like you to contribute to the refreshment table, and everyone else is welcome as well. Thank you.
I'll take a few minutes here just to mention a few things as far as some future things. First of all, we have there's a fig that Tom is going to air layer to show how, instead of whacking off a branch, put an air layer on it, and later on remove it when roots are in the ball of sphagnum moss or peat moss or whatever. And you can shape your tree, prune your tree, head it back or whatever without losing that growth. You just turn it into another tree. So that fig is one that's called Peter's, which is a nice amber-colored fig. Then over there are a couple, 2 or 3 lychee trees and a longan, a kohala longan, that have been air layered, which is what you guys are going to learn from Tom and Leo tonight. So we would like to encourage people not to chop off those branches, air layer them first. Second thing, next month is going to be the Mango Fandango. We have diced Kent mangoes, which are about the best available generally in the market, and vanilla ice cream. So we need a full, hopefully we'll have some different types of mangoes so people can distinguish Tommy Atkins, which is what you usually see, from some of the other ones which are more bitter. Okay, in July there's a picnic on the 17th with the San Diego chapter. It's up in the Paul Hickey building of the Botanic Garden, San Diego Botanic Garden, formerly called Quail Gardens. And it's always a real nice time. It's a potluck, so bring something and stuff yourself and enjoy a variety of food. There'll be some plant sale too. In August, we're planning on not having a regular meeting because we would like to see everybody go to the Pomona campus for the Festival of Fruit on August 14th. So, get together with your friends, acquaintances, carpool, whatever, but you want to do it within a month in advance, I think, or they charge you $5 or $10 extra. It's in the Fruit Gardener, all the instructions. Otherwise, make some phone calls if there's any confusion.
Please remember that early registration ends on July 25th?
I'm not sure, but I thought it was earlier than that.
There is an early registration deadline that you save $10. It was in the newsletter this month, and it's also on the website. So you might want to check that out if you're planning on going. You will save $10 if you register early.
Okay. We may be doing some kind of a picnic and a planned preparation rally to get everything ready for the Labor Day plant sale. But that'll be in the newsletter. And that's about it, right, Tom? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Well, I'm sure you all got the notice that Don Martin has been on vacation, a well-deserved vacation, I'm sure. So the reason why we didn't have a newsletter this month, however, next month she'll be back and we'll have our regular newsletter. Unfortunately, next month I'm going to be on vacation. I'm going to be up visiting my son in Washington and seeing my granddaughter. And so I'm going to miss our Mango Fandango. But that'll be a bad one to miss, because that one is always wonderful. So please mark it on your calendar and come on down and eat some mangoes and ice cream for me. Anybody else have any announcements they'd like to make before we get the program started this evening? No? Okay, with that, as we've been talking, Steve has been bringing in some really exciting things back there. I'm seeing all these really cool plants coming in. So please do make a point of going back there and seeing what he has. He's got some pretty neat looking stuff. But let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn off the front lights. The presentation tonight, the information is on our website, at the San Diego chapter website, CRFG It's under articles, and if you look under articles, you can find detailed information on air layering, the procedure that I printed out. If you are members and do not get your and are not computer savvy and don't use the internet, I do have copies of that handout at the back table for you with Cielo in the member table, and you can pick up a copy there. And if we have extra copies after the members get theirs and visitors would like to pick up a copy, you're welcome to have them. Leo Manuel, who is my co-speaker tonight, Leo, where are you? There he is. He also has a great article on a process of air layering that he brought in to share, and he has some handouts on the way they do it in Florida. And there are a few minor differences, but air layering is successful in many parts of the world, and everybody has a slightly different take on it. So I'm going to show you a method that we developed while I was manager of Pacific Tree Farms. It's a method that's very easy and very successful. It is also the method I'll show you this evening after the presentation. So with that, I'm going to turn off the lights and get started. Thank you, Dave. Yeah, that was fine. Air layering. Air layering is a very successful method of propagating plants while they are still on the parent tree. Some plants plants are very difficult to air layer, and methods, some plants are very difficult to propagate and do not root well by cuttings, do not graft well. And the principal method of propagating clonal trees or replicas is by causing them to form roots while still attached to the mother tree, and then removing them once the roots have formed. This is a very easy method of propagation because you do not need any specialized equipment. You don't need a greenhouse, you don't need a mist bed, you don't need bottom heat. Anybody can do it, and you can do it on almost anything. You can do it on your fruit trees, you can do it on your rose bushes, you can do it on your flowering shrubs, you can do it on basically most plants. There are a few exceptions. But a very successful method of propagating, and one of the main advantages of air layering is the very fast rate at which you can produce a new tree. If you look at Josh over here on the picture on the right, those are air layers that were taken off the parent tree in 3 months. You're looking at 12-foot mulberry trees, which if I were to graft these or grow them from cutting propagation, that's about a 3 to 4 year old tree. We produced it in 3 months. So this is something that's very rewarding. The other advantage is that by air layering, you can frequently get a tree that's in fruit production by the second season. Air layer it this year, very often you get fruit next year. So a great way to make some new trees from branches that you would normally just prune off, and thereby take advantage of that material to make new trees. Air layering, you don't need sophisticated equipment. These are the basic tools that we use when air layering, and you can substitute. There isn't any hard or fast rule. You don't need special types of shears or special this or special that, but basic tools. Pair of hand pruners. You can use girdling scissors. They do make these specialized scissors that have a notch cut in them. And if we look right over here, this is a pair of scissors called girdling scissors. If we look right at this point, a notch has been cut out and sharpened, so when you wrap it around the branch, it cuts through the bark, as you'll see in just a moment. But you can use a knife just as well. You don't need these scissors. A pair of pliers, channel locks, vice grips, some rooting hormone. I'm going to show you a method by which we use prepared air layer bags. This is what you see right over here. And old methods of air layering, you had to be very ambidextrous. And sometimes I think you needed 3 arms, because you would be holding the plastic with one hand and tying it with another hand and trying to fill it with peat moss with the other hand, and all peat moss is falling out. If you're up in a tree, that can become very hazardous to your health. When I was a young propagator, I was sent out to air layer trees, and oftentimes I was 15, 20 feet up in the air, climbing these trees, trying to put air layers on them with sheets of plastic and holding onto the tree, and that was pretty tricky. So this method of producing air layer bags really helps out. You can prepare these ahead of time, and I'll show you that in just a moment. You're going to need something to block the sunlight. Aluminum foil works very well. You can use black plastic. You can use other things. I like aluminum foil. And a marking pen to mark the date. Now, in preparing air layer bags, this can be done well ahead of time. If you're preparing an air layer bag, you have some time in a day. You can sit there and make air layer bags, and you can store these bags for long periods of time. Keep them in a dark location, and they can sit there for more than a year unused, so that whenever you get around to air layer, you just simply take a bag out with you and slap on an air layer. It's very quick and simple. We found that using bags approximately 6 inches by 10 inches was a very widely adaptable bag. It was big enough to air layer a branch between the diameters of 3/4 inch and up to 2 inches in diameter and an average length of 3 to 6 feet. Although those 10-foot mulberries you saw were air layered with this bag and were done very successfully. You don't have to have special bags. You can use Ziploc bags, you can use sandwich bags, you can use whatever you have. Ziploc bags work quite well. You do want to have a shoot-to-root ratio, so you don't want to take a giant air layer and have a teeny tiny bag. You want to have some relative root mass so that when you take the air layer off, you have enough roots to support the new air layer. These bags that we got from a commercial bag company, Bradley Bag Company, were 4 to 6 mils thick. They're nice heavy bags, keep them from splitting, keep them from rotting and deteriorating. But if you can't find this, you can use many other things. The rooting medium we found most successful was either 100% pre-moistened peat moss or a mixture of 80% peat, 20% perlite. We found that during the cold winter months, sometimes the peat tended to stay too wet and soggy. So adding the perlite added additional aeration and facilitated the rooting a little bit better, especially during the cooler months. Today, with the issues of peat moss not being a renewable resource, you can use coconut coir very successfully. You don't need the acid of the peat. And back when I started air layering, coconut coir was not widely available, but it works very, very well. The bottom here, you're going to need a piece of twine, some 6 to 8 feet long. You'll see what we're going to do with that in just a moment here.
Jim?
When you're preparing your air layer bags, you need to pre-moisten your media. Get the peat moss and perlite moderately wet but not soggy. I usually put it in a bucket, get thoroughly wet, and then squeeze it out with moderate pressure before putting it in the bag. You don't want to squeeze it with all your might and squeeze every drop of water out of it, but you don't want it soggy either. Fill the bag approximately 3/4 full so that you have some room to twist it closed at the top, and you don't want it stuffed so full that there's no room for the branch. So a little bit soft and squishy, and I have some air layer bags tonight that are on the opportunity table that I prepared for you to take home if you would like and try air layering with them. There's a couple of different packages of 3 each. You can see them. I also have some if you'd like to see how full they should be. You tie the bag closed up at the top with your twine, and then wrap the extra twine around the bag and loop it in place. So now the bag's all prepared. You're ready to go. You put it in storage, and as long as it's kept in a cool, dark area, it can stay for you more than a year. I've had bags more than a year. You don't want them out in the sun. Algae grows, the plastic deteriorates, so keep them in a cool, dark place in the garage or in a shed. You're going to need a rooting hormone. Rooting hormones are not essential, but they are greatly advantageous to facilitating more rapid root formation. Root hormones don't force a branch to form roots, but it encourages them to form roots much more quickly, and you get much better root development using a rooting hormone. Liquid rooting hormones are best when using woody branches, as powders don't have the same effectiveness. Commercially, if you're in the industry, you can get 8,000 part per million indobutyric acid, but if you're not in the nursery business, you can pick up Dip and Grow at many retail nurseries as well as online, and it contains 8,000 parts per million IDA. Walter Anderson Nursery carries it, City Farmers Nursery carries it, I'm sure there's other nurseries that carry it as well. One thing to note, never get cuttings into your rooting hormone in the original container. once plant tissue comes in contact with the rooting hormone, it activates the rooting hormone, and the rooting hormone will deteriorate very quickly. So if you're using a rooting hormone to dip cuttings, you should always put the rooting hormone of an approximate amount you think you're going to use in a container other than the original container, and dip your cuttings in that. That way, the stock of rooting hormone does not become contaminated.
So you throw away the leftover?
No, but it does lose effectiveness, and you might want to add to it fresh.
Could you store it in the fridge?
You could, yeah. But it's a chemical reaction with the tissue that starts the breakdown of the hormones. Now, when we apply air layers, we want to select a branch that's ideally going to be best for production of roots. You can air layer any branch. You can air layer downward facing branches. You can air layer branches on the interior of your tree. You can air layer crowded branches, and they will form roots. But they will form roots more slowly than if you select branches that are in an upright growing position and are in good sun exposure. For fastest root initiation, pick a branch that's growing upright and in a nice sunny area of the tree. If you have a branch that you're just going to prune off anyway and it's downward facing or inside, air layer it. It'll form roots. It'll just take a little bit longer. This demonstration, we were air layering branches 3 to 6 feet tall, 3/4 of an inch to about 1.5 inches in diameter, typically.
Does it matter how old the branches are if they're 1 year growth?
It does not matter how old the branches are, although you do want them stout and strong enough to be able to support the weight of the air layer. When you remove the bark, you remove some of the structural support. So if you're doing very small branches, be sure to stake the branch with a separate stake so that the weight of the air layer doesn't break the branch off. And sometimes you'll need to support the branch by staking it and tying it to the stake to prevent it from breaking off before roots are formed. We did branches, that were just for an experiment. We air layered some branches 4 inches in diameter that were probably 5 years plus in age, and they formed roots. The best place to put an air layer bag is where you have a nice straight area with no branches so that the branches don't interfere with the application of the bag. If there are branches there, cut them off. Cut them out of your way and remove them. You are going to make 2 rings through the bark called girdling rings, approximately 1.5 inches to 2 inches apart for this size air layer. So one above the other, about 2 inches apart. And you are going to cut through the bark. Stop cutting when you contact the wood. The idea is we're going to remove the bark. We're not trying to cut into the wood. If we are to look at a cross-section, the bark is the tissue outside the vascular cambium. And this contains primary phloem and secondary phloem tissues. You'll see why this is important in just a moment. The wood, which is inside of the cambium, is made up of primary and secondary xylem tissues. And when we girdle the branch, we are cutting through the phloem and stopping that cambium. Not cutting in that xylem tissue, but just cutting to the wood. Once we made these 2 ring cuts, we strip the bark away. And we do this by using a pair of pliers or vice grips or channel locks. Grasp it firmly, and with a fair amount of vigor, twist it severely. and the bark will strip away. What this results is that we remove the phloem tissue, the stuff in the bark on the outside of the cambium, but the xylem tissue, which is in the wood, remains intact. Yes, sir?
Is it advantageous to do this when the bark is slipping, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter what time of year. If it's bark is slipping, the bark will come away more easily, but it doesn't matter. Because you're going to rip it away. If it's not slipping, you're just going to use a little more force and rip it away. It doesn't matter what time of year. We put air layers on 12 months of the year. It takes longer during the cool months than the warm growing season, but it roots at all times of the year. Some plants root better at some times of the year than others. And of course, if a plant goes dormant in the wintertime, like a peach tree, it's not going to form roots in the wintertime. Now this is what's happening when we strip that bark away. The xylem, which is that woody tissue, is the conductive tissues by which water and nutrients flow from the roots to the branches and leaves of the tree. It's a one-way flow. So the roots pick up water and nutrients, and through the wood or xylem tissue, they go up into the leaves of the branch. And the leaves of the branch, they're converted into starches and other products of photosynthesis and move back down through the phloem tissue to feed the roots. But we girdled the branch. And so we interrupted this flow of photosynthates at the girdled area, and this buildup of auxins and starches and carbohydrates at that girdled area initiates root formation above where we girdled it. Once we've stripped that bark away, we want to make sure we've removed all the cambial tissue and any possibility of remaining phloem that might be left in the girdled area. So take a knife and lightly scrape all the way around this girdled region, moving the knife up and down, lightly shaving away any residual phloem tissue and cambial tissue. Again, we're not trying to whittle the wood down. We're just trying to remove any possibility of residual phloem and cambial tissue from remaining on this girdled area, so that at this point, when we're ready to apply our air layer, the girdled region is made up only of xylem tissue. There is no green, there is no remaining cambium or phloem. At this point, it's helpful to wound the branch above the girdled area by taking your knife and making a cut through the outer epidermis or cork part to expose the cambium, as this will help give more area for root initiation. Roots arise from callus tissue that is produced by the cambium, and by making these wounds, we get more callus tissue and more root formation. So take your knife and just lightly shave above the girdled area on both sides of the branch, making a cut approximately 3 inches or so above the girdled area right here. This encourages better root formation on your area. And now we're ready to apply the rooting hormone. We take the liquid rooting hormone and apply it to the bark area where we wounded the bark above the girdled region. People will sometimes make a mistake and apply the rooting hormone where they girdled. And that does not. You want to put your rooting hormone up here above the girdled area. You can see it, the branch is wet. And we're applying it above this area to the wounded region, all the way around the branch. Not just to the wounds, but all the way around the branch. Now we're ready to apply our back. And not we unwind the string from the air layering bag, and we take our knife and we cut the knife. We cut the bag with the knife, going from the string down to the bottom seam, right down the middle, cutting it halfway through, and opening it up so that we can wrap it around the branch. If the bag is packed too full, you may need to remove some of the peat moss. If it's a small air layer, you may need to make the bag smaller. And you can adjust the size of the bag to meet your air layer branch at this point. You now wrap the bag around the branch so that the bottom of the bag is at the bottom of the girdle region, and the top of the bag is above the area where you apply the rooting hormone. Completely cover that area so that when the roots grow from the area above the girdled region, the roots have room to grow downward. Roots grow downward towards gravity. And you want to have some room at the bottom of the bag for the roots to grow. You don't want the bag up at the top of the girdled area, otherwise the roots can't grow down. You can now overlap the plastic folding, one portion of the plastic over the other, overlapping it, so that it seals the bag to prevent moisture from escaping from the bag. And you now take this 6 to 8 foot tail of string that you have attached to the bottom of the bag and wrap it around the bag, tying the bag tightly and securely to the branch. Wrap, 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 you have a little tail, you tie a knot on it, and now you're ready to go. If the branch is straight up and down, the orientation of the bag doesn't matter. But if the branch is angled and there is a bottom side to the branch, rotate your bag so that the cut is facing downward. The reason for that is that as moisture condenses, it goes up. And if it goes up to the seam, there's a greater risk of it escaping from the bag. So if you rotate your bag, the bag's going to stay moist longer. It's now time to cover the bag so that no light gets in. Roots do not grow in light, they grow in darkness. I like using aluminum foil because aluminum foil can be applied to the bag. You can open it, see if there are any roots. If there aren't any, it's easy to close it up and move on. And you can do that repeatedly. You don't have to tie and untie and tape and untape. You just crimp it and uncrimp it. Aluminum foil also gives you some advantages because if it's a hot time of year and your air layers are in the sunlight and you're in a hot area of the county, you have to be careful that the air layer bag doesn't overheat. And aluminum foil has a shiny side that if you put the shiny side out, heat is reflected. If it's a cool time of the year and you want to warm the bag up, you put the dull side of the aluminum foil out, and that absorbs more heat and warms the bag up. And at this point, you now put a date on the bag because the hardest part of all of this is waiting for those roots. If you put a date on the bag, then you know when it was applied. If you don't, you go out in a week and you peek, and go out in 2 weeks and you peek, and you go out in 15 days and you peek. So if you put a date on there, you say, oh, it's only been a month, I'm going to wait a little longer. And you can't put many air layers on a tree or on a plant. But do not air layer every single branch. If you air layer every single branch, no food goes back down into the roots. And the roots starve and the plant dies. That's why plants will die when you girdle them. Because no food gets to the roots. So although you can put many air layers on a given plant, make sure you leave enough branches without air layers to feed the root system. And this is how root initiation develops. We look at the root development from above the girdled area, we start to get this mass of undifferentiated cells called callus tissue. And that looks like, some people would say it looks like cancer. It's just this growth of undifferentiated cells. It's woody, it's corky, and from that, as it gets larger, what's happening is the photosynthates in food are being building up above the girdled area, and we get more and more callus tissue. Eventually, roots start to develop. And as that progresses, more roots develop, and finally, roots will completely fill the media in the air layer. And at this point, the air layer is now ready to remove. You want to remove the air layer when there's a good amount of roots. Don't take it off too soon. Sometimes a condition called bridging occurs. If the phloem tissue, the bark, reconnects above and below the girdled area, no callus tissue will develop and no roots will form. This is called bridging. And although it's hard to see in this light, here was a branch where it had started to develop callus tissue, but there's a little bridge of new bark that connected right down the edge here. It was only about a quarter of an inch in diameter, but it connected the bottom and the top tissues together, and no roots developed. Some plants have an amazing ability to develop bridge tissue and reconnect. On Jaboticabas, I've girdled areas a foot wide, and it grew over it and bridged the tissue and did not form roots. So it's really important to really be thorough when you're scraping that cambium and phloem away so bridging does not occur. The air layers are ready to be removed when the air layering beds have been permeated by roots. This typically takes somewhere between about 6 and 12 weeks. Pretty average. Somewhere between 6 weeks and 3 months. Depending on the plant, depending on the time of the year. Some can take as long as 2 years. I've had plants that I put iron layers on in the spring, they go all through the winter, nothing happens. I've left them there and just kind of washed them, and finally the next fall I get around to okay, I need to either take these off or reapply them, and lo and behold, peek, there's roots. So it can take as long as 2 years. The question is, do you have to rehydrate the bag? Not if you did a good job of sealing it. Did a good job of sealing it, there's no way for the moisture to escape. So no, we did not rehydrate the bag. Yeah.
Do you remove the fruit above the branch? Or above where the air is?
Do you remove the fruit? It may be a good idea, although we typically did not. Removing the fruit may encourage faster rooting rather than having energy going into the fruit. But we did not. Not essential. So now it's time to remove the air layer, and these are the kinds of things that we're going to need. Again, nothing special, pretty basic. A container, some good quality potting soil, a trowel, some stakes, hampers, knives. You're going to need a bucket or a container to fill with water. Some helpful things are number 10, anti-transpirant. This is a product you spray on the leaves to reduce the moisture loss from the leaves. You may need a mist house or a shade house, or at the very least, a shady area in the garden. And a couple of things that can be very helpful but are not essential are a root-stimulating hormone like Super Thrive and a starter fertilizer that has phosphorus as well as something that has mycorrhizae in it. Mycorrhizae is a beneficial fungus that forms association with most plant roots and greatly enhances enhances the root's ability to pick up water and phosphorus. And the perfect time to inoculate a root system on a new plant is when you first plant it. So a brand new air layer, which has no symbiotic mycorrhizae associated with the roots, can be greatly, can have a great amount of enhancement found when you inoculate them with mycorrhizae at planting time. Here you can see some lychees that were removed. This was about a 3-month period. That lychee is about a little over an inch in diameter and stood about 4.5 feet tall. You want to have sufficient roots when you remove it so that it holds that root ball together. One very important thing to remember is the roots are very brittle. And these roots, when they first come off the air layer, off the mother tree, are not really functioning yet. These roots aren't picking up water and nutrients yet. They really haven't been kick-started yet. They're there, but they're in a dormant state. So we're going to have to do some things to kick them in and get them to start picking up water and nutrients and functioning. By looking through the clear plastic bag, we can see the roots have completely permeated this root ball. And no, all roots are not white. Some roots are black, like the macadamia. Some roots are red. Some roots are brown. So sometimes you have to really look hard to see the root, especially in macadamia. Black roots on black peat moss is hard to see. But look carefully. Oftentimes the roots occur on the bottom side of the branch first. If you have a branch that's leaning and there's a bottom, look on the bottom. Roots will often occur there before they occur on the top. When you remove the branch, it's a good idea. We found this is what we did. It's not essential. But we left about 2 to 4 inches of stub below the air layer bag. You'll see why in just a moment. Sometimes if the branch is right against another branch or a trunk, there isn't that room. But if you have it, cut off a little stub below the air layer bag when you remove the air layer. Sorry. Once the air layer was removed from the parent plant, you need to rehydrate it for best results. Before unwrapping it, take a knife and cut some slits through the plastic and soak the plastic in a bucket of water anywhere from an hour to overnight. Completely submerge the air layer so that it's underwater. And the bubbles will come out and the air layer will become nice and wet. You can see it dripping with water here and it's rehydrated and now ready to plant. At this point, there is some very beneficial results found in using root stimulants, such as those found in Super Thrive. Super Thrive contains naphthalene acetic acid, a plant hormone which stimulates root development. And putting Super Thrive and sometimes other products that stimulate root activity in the water where you soak the air layer can really speed up the rate at which these root system kicks in. So you'll find some greater success rates if you use products like this. When you are potting them up, don't get carried away. Put them up into a huge container. Pot them into a small container first. Wait until the roots grow into the small container and then pot it into a larger container. Again, the root ball is very fragile, so make your hole before you unwrap the air layer bag again, the roots can grow downward into that container. At this point, if you choose, and it's not essential but can be beneficial, you can add a starter fertilizer or a fertilizer that has mycorrhizae or just a mycorrhizae inoculant to the hole around where the root ball will be placed. Again, mycorrhizae must come in direct contact with the roots of the plant. And the best time to do this is at planting time. So this can greatly speed up the symbiotic relationship between the fungus and the roots and help the root pick up water and phosphorus.
Do you want to untangle the roots or just leave them alone?
You'll see that in just a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Once the root ball is wet, it's time to carefully cut that plastic away from the root ball. Cut the string and then be very gentle and remove the plastic from the root ball. It's easy to break these roots off. So take your time, be careful, and wrap it as carefully as possible. If the root development is excessive, just heavy mass of roots around the outside of the root ball, it may be necessary to score or cut some of the roots. If the picture on the left, you can see that's a pretty heavily matted root ball. And if we don't damage some of these roots by cutting it in a few places, the new roots may never grow out of that air layer. Cutting it in a few places helps to cause wounds, which stimulate new roots to grow from the wounded area and helps the plant to root out into the soil more readily. If the root ball is not heavily massed with roots, then untangling the roots is not done, no. And at no time do you really want to untangle them, because if you untangle them, you might break them off. So you may want to cut them a few places here or there, but I wouldn't even do that unless it was just really knotted up with roots. The air layer is now put into the container with the top of the air layer's root ball just below the surface of the potting soil. We don't want to bury the stem of the plant. The roots are just below the surface. You want to 3 to 4 inches below the bottom of the air layer, and that stub you left below the root ball helps you to stab it into the soil and can help to stabilize that air layer. Now you're ready to add more soil around the root ball to pack it in. And don't make this mistake. Don't put dirt on top of there and then pound it from the top, because you'll break the root ball right off. What we learned to do was, once the soil was added to the pot, we used our hands or a tamping stick, and as far out towards the side of the container as possible, we pressed the soil from the outside towards the center. Grabbing it at the outside, pushing towards the middle, firming it around the root ball, going towards the stem rather than packing down. And if we needed to add more soil, then we added it to the outer edge so that we were well away from the root balls. More than once we put soil on an air layer that had nice roots, firmed it down, and broke the root ball off. The finished soil level should be like any potted plant, 1 to 2 inches below the top of the container. And now you're ready to water the plant in. At this point, we would always stake the plant before we finish, placing 2 or 3 stakes near the outer edge of the pot. We would tie the branches to the stakes in 2 or 3 opposing directions to hold the plant firmly in position. Again, don't put a stake against the main stem and jam it through the root ball while you break the root ball off. So put it near the outer edge, we angled them outward and tied them or 2 or 3 areas to hold it securely. And then water it in. Now we have to do some things to make sure that the foliage doesn't lose water faster than the roots can pick it up. We have to reduce the transpiration rate, otherwise the plant can lose moisture so quickly that it will dehydrate and possibly die. And you can do that in a number of ways. Using an anti-transpirant can be sprayed on the leaves, and this reduces the water loss from the leaves. Wolfproof and Cloud Cover are 2 commercially available products, and they do a pretty good job of reducing the amount of water loss from the leaves. You can also remove some of the leaves. Up to 50% is not a bad idea. Either remove some of the leaves entirely, or if the leaves are very large, cut the leaves in half. Some growers remove all the leaves. But by removing all the leaves, then the plant has no ability to make food. And at that point, now the plant must expend food to both make more leaves and make more roots. So you'll generally find it better to leave some leaves there. However, with leaves, you are going to have to make sure that it doesn't dry out. Typically, the air layer is put in a mist house, or a spray bed, or a shade house, or under a shady tree somewhere that has a lot of plants around it so the humidity is high. These are all ways of reducing the transpiration. The air layer should be put in partial shade, never in full sun. You don't want it in deep dark shade. It needs some light. But these are all different methods of achieving the same results. Yes, sir.
Once I was visiting Leo.
That's right here.
Okay.
And this is what Leo does. And it's a great way to do it. This is another way to reduce transpiration, by bagging our air layers. We can use a translucent or transparent plastic bag and put it over the top of the air layer and make a little miniature greenhouse. Typically, you would want to put stakes in the pot so the plastic bag doesn't touch the branches of the air layer. And generally, the bag is not tied shut, left open at the bottom. Now, is that what you do, Leo? You close it up? So Leo closes it up, and he has success doing that. And that's another way of doing it. But yes, making a little miniature greenhouse by bagging works great.
I was flabbergasted. He was taking these blown down air layers off and not cutting back any of the leaf, because they have lots of beautiful foliage. And he said, no, it works that way.
Yes.
And it's really great to be able to salvage all that foliage and not have to trim, each leaf back to half an size or whatever.
And it has definitely speeds up the rooting into the container.
Well, they save time.
Absolutely, saves time. You can also put your pot on top of bottom heat if you really want to speed up the rooting. Bottom heat can be used, and it will stimulate faster root developments into the container. Not necessary, but if you